she fled her engagement in the rain. Then a millionaire took her in and proposed to her. It was supposed to be the happiest night of her life, but for Tara Carver, it turned into a nightmare under crystal chandeliers. The grand ballroom buzzed with anticipation as 400 guests waited to celebrate her engagement to Miles Peterson, a union that promised power, prestige, and profit. But behind closed doors, the truth unraveled in a way no one saw coming. As Tara stood frozen in the doorway of her father's study, champagne glass slipping from her fingers, she watched the life she thought she knew shatter right before her eyes. Her fiancé, Miles, and her cousin Veronica, two people she trusted most, were entangled in betrayal so deep it left her questioning everything about herself, her relationships, and the world she lived in. That's when the rain began to fall. Furious, unrelenting sheets of water pounded against the mansion windows, mirroring the storm brewing inside Tara. Without thinking twice, she ran, barefoot, on cold marble floors, through opulent hallways, out into the chaos of the storm, clutching nothing but the remnants of her dignity. She didn't know where she was going. All she knew was that she needed to escape from lies, expectations, and the suffocating weight of being Gideon Carver's perfect daughter. Drenched to the bone, makeup streaming down her face, Tara stumbled blindly into the night, leaving behind not just an engagement party, but an entire life built on appearances. And then fate stepped in. Lost, drenched, and desperate, Tara found herself at what she believed was a friend's estate. But instead of finding refuge with someone familiar, she came face to face with a man who would change everything. Cole Vance, a self-made millionaire whose towering presence and piercing gaze seemed to strip away every layer of pretense she'd ever worn. He wasn't like the polished elites she grew up around. There was something raw, magnetic, and undeniably dangerous about him. Yet despite his guarded demeanor, there was also kindness, offering her shelter from the storm. He became more than just a stranger offering help. He became the catalyst for a journey neither of them could have predicted. As the hours ticked by, hidden truths started surfacing, one after another. Cole wasn't just some wealthy recluse, living lavishly off his success. He carried scars of his own, buried beneath years of carefully constructed walls. And Tara, she wasn't just the picture-perfect heiress everyone assumed her to be. Beneath the designer gowns and practiced smiles lay a woman yearning to break free, to rediscover who she truly was, outside the shadow of her family name. Their connection deepened quickly, almost unnaturally, as if they recognized pieces of themselves reflected in each other. Conversations stretched late into the night, punctuated by moments of tension, vulnerability, and undeniable chemistry. By morning, both realized this chance encounter might mean far more than either had anticipated. But here's the twist. While their bond grew stronger, secrets loomed larger. Unknown to Tara, Cole had ties to her father's business empire. Ties that blurred the lines between coincidence and calculation. Was their meeting truly serendipitous, or part of a bigger plan? Meanwhile, back in New York, Gideon Carver wasn't. About to let his daughter slip away without a fight, with Miles by his side, he launched a desperate attempt to bring Tara home, using every tool at his disposal, including declaring her mentally unfit to manage her inheritance. As the stakes rose higher, Tara faced impossible choices. Trust the man who offered her sanctuary, or confront the father who shaped her existence. The tension reached its peak during a heated confrontation in Gideon's private study. Emotions flared as accusations flew, revealing shocking truths about financial misconduct, hidden motives, and betrayals stretching back decades. Just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, a medical emergency struck, forcing Tara to question whether revenge or redemption should guide her next move. Through it all, Cole remained a constant presence, quietly supporting her even when doubt clouded her judgment. His actions spoke louder than words, showing her time and again that he valued honesty over manipulation, partnership over control. Yet, as much as Cole tried to prove himself trustworthy, lingering questions kept Tara awake at night. Had their connection been genuine, or merely a calculated strategy tied to his business interests? The timing of their meeting felt too convenient, too perfectly orchestrated to dismiss entirely. Each revelation added another layer of complexity to what had once felt so pure at the coastal sanctuary. Torn between the life she fled and the possibilities glimpsed with Cole, Tara grappled with a decision that would define not only her future, but also the legacy she wanted to leave behind. In the end, love demanded answers, not just from Cole, but from within herself. Determined to uncover the whole truth, Tara embarked on a journey of discovery, retracing the steps that led her to Cole and confronting the demons haunting them both. What she found challenged everything she thought she knew about family, loyalty, and the nature of fate itself. From intimate moments shared in art studios to revelations hidden in legal documents, each clue brought her closer to understanding the depth of Cole's character and the sincerity of his feelings for her. But just as clarity began to emerge, a new challenge arose. The board meeting her father postponed now loomed ahead, threatening to upend everything Tara and Cole had worked toward. Would their partnership withstand the scrutiny of corporate politics and personal vendettas, or would the pressures of the outside world tear them apart before they even had a chance to fully commit to each other? Standing together amidst uncertainty, Tara and Cole faced a crossroads more significant than any they'd encountered before. Choosing each other meant walking away from safety nets, embracing vulnerability, and daring to create a life defined not by others' expectations, but by their own authentic desires. As lightning illuminated the library where it all began, Tara turned to Cole, heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. "Where do we go from here?" she asked softly, her voice trembling with emotion. His response hung in the air, heavy with promise, yet laced with uncertainty. They weren't just deciding their next step. They were choosing the kind of future they wanted to build together, one filled with passion, purpose, and the courage to rewrite their stories on their own terms. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test their resolve, redefine their dreams, and ultimately lead them to a love stronger than anything either had ever imagined. So, what happens next? Will Tara and Cole find a way to merge their worlds without losing themselves in the process? Can love conquer betrayal, ambition, and the ghosts of their past? Stay tuned to find out how this whirlwind romance unfolds, because the best is yet to come. As the storm raged on outside, Tara found herself drawn to the library where it all began. The same crystal chandeliers cast their deceptive glow, but now they illuminated a space heavy with unspoken truths. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything had been leading up to this moment: the betrayal, the escape, and her unexpected connection with Cole. Every step she took through the mansion felt like walking deeper into a labyrinth of secrets, each one more unsettling than the last. It wasn't just about Miles, or even her father anymore. It was about understanding who she truly was, beneath the layers of expectation and obligation. And as much as she wanted to believe in Cole's sincerity, doubt lingered like an unwelcome shadow. What if his interest in her had always been tied to his business plans? The thought made her stomach churn. Cole, meanwhile, stood by the window, watching the rain lash against the glass. His mind replayed every interaction with Tara, searching for signs he might have missed, clues that could explain how they'd ended up here. He thought about the night she stumbled into his life, dripping wet and defiant, quoting Dante while standing on his Persian rug. That image still brought a smile to his face, but it was tinged with sadness now. He hadn't planned to let anyone get close again after Westridge's betrayal left him stripped bare, emotionally and financially. Yet there she was, breaking down walls he didn't even realize he'd built around himself. The irony wasn't lost on him. The woman who saw through his polished exterior was also at the center of the biggest business decision he'd ever faced. Back at the hospital, Gideon Carver lay awake despite the sedatives meant to keep him calm. His mind raced with thoughts of failure, not just as a businessman, but as a father. For years, he'd justified his actions by telling himself it was all for the family legacy. But seeing Tara stand up to him, revealing evidence of his financial misconduct, forced him to confront the truth. He'd pushed her away so many times, manipulated her choices, and ignored her passions. Now, when he needed her most, would she abandon him completely? The fear gnawed at him, sharper than any physical pain. Miles sat silently nearby, guilt etched across his features. Even he seemed unsure whether his earlier concerns for Gideon were genuine or calculated. Tara wrestled with conflicting emotions as she reviewed the documents Cole had left behind. Each file confirmed what her heart already suspected. Her father's empire was built on deception, not just in business dealings, but in personal relationships too. The revelation stung, but it also clarified something crucial. He wasn't the man she thought she knew. As she delved further, she uncovered details about Cole's past that painted a very different picture from what her father had implied. Far from being a corporate predator, he'd protected young innovators from exploitation and established foundations to support creativity. These weren't the actions of someone looking to destroy. They were the moves of a man trying to build something meaningful. Still, the timing of their meeting gnawed at her. Was it possible fate worked in such poetic symmetry? Or was she fooling herself? The tension reached a boiling point when Tara returned to the hospital to find her father awake and demanding answers. "You think you've won," Gideon spat, though his voice lacked its usual authority. "But do you really understand what you're destroying?" Tara met his gaze steadily, no longer intimidated by the man who once loomed so large over her life. "I'm not destroying anything, father. I'm uncovering the truth. Something you should have done years ago." Behind them, Miles shifted, uncomfortably, caught between loyalty to Gideon and growing admiration for Tara's strength. The dynamics in the room shifted palpably, each word slicing through decades of carefully constructed facades. Meanwhile, Cole waited anxiously at the coastal sanctuary, pacing the studio where he'd poured so much of himself onto canvas. He knew giving Tara space was the right thing to do, but it didn't make the waiting any easier. Every creak of the floorboards outside made his heart leap, hoping it was her. Instead, memories flooded back. Their first conversation. The way she understood his art without needing explanations. The vulnerability in her eyes when she spoke of her dreams, crushed under familial pressure. He realized then that loving her wasn't just about protecting her from others' manipulations. It was about helping her reclaim pieces of herself she'd long buried. As dawn approached, Tara finally made her decision. She couldn't stay trapped in the cycle of deceit and control any longer. Her father's condition demanded attention. Yes, but it wouldn't define her future. With a deep breath, she stepped out into the rain-soaked streets, hailing a cab toward the helipad. Jensen greeted her with quiet understanding, handing her a note from Cole before guiding her aboard the helicopter. Inside, she clutched the folded paper tightly, reading his words over and over. "Where we began is where we must decide if we end." Tears blurred her vision as the city lights gave way to darkness below. This journey wasn't just about finding answers. It was about choosing who she wanted to be. When the helicopter descended toward the lantern-lit path leading to the studio, Tara's heart pounded with anticipation. She followed the glowing trail, passing landmarks that held fragments of their shared history. Each step brought her closer to the truth, not just about Cole and her father, but about herself. Entering the transformed studio, she saw the unfinished painting awaiting its final strokes. Then, turning slowly, she met Cole's gaze. In that charged silence, nothing else mattered except the question hanging between them. Would they choose to finish this story together or let it remain incomplete? The storm outside seemed to mirror the tempest of emotions swirling within Tara as she stood there, the weight of Cole's words settling deep into her soul. Every carefully crafted defense, every wall she'd built around herself after years of living under her father's shadow, began to crumble. She realized now that what she felt for Cole wasn't just attraction or gratitude. It was something far greater, something that had been growing steadily since the moment their paths crossed. It was love, raw and unfiltered, born not from convenience, but from truth. And yet, the stakes were higher than ever. Her father's empire teetered on the edge of collapse, not because of Cole's actions, but because of Gideon Carver's own greed and deceit. The SEC investigation loomed large, and the board meeting scheduled for the next morning would determine the fate of everything her family had built. Cole must have sensed her hesitation, because he cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't even realized were falling. "Tara," he murmured, his voice steady, despite the storm raging both inside and outside. "You don't have to decide tonight. Whatever happens with the board, whatever your father has done, none of it defines you. You've already proven who you are. A woman brave enough to walk away from lies, strong enough to seek the truth, and compassionate enough to see the humanity in others." His words struck a chord so deep, it nearly took her breath away. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't telling her who she needed to be. They were affirming who she already was. But time was running out. As dawn approached, casting pale golden light over the horizon, Tara knew she couldn't delay the inevitable. She dressed quickly, her mind racing with decisions that felt impossible to make. Should she fight to save her father's company, tainted as it was by corruption, or should she let it fall, allowing justice to take its course, while focusing on building something new, something pure, with Cole? When she walked back into the studio, where the unfinished painting still waited, Cole was there, fully dressed, as if he'd known she'd need him one last time before facing the world. He handed her a folder without a word. Inside were documents detailing an alternative proposal for the board, one that prioritized transparency, ethical practices, and the integration of Renaissance Rising's mission into Carver Media's core operations. It was a lifeline, a way forward that didn't require compromise or betrayal. At the board meeting later that day, tensions ran high. Gideon, frail but defiant, sat at the head of the table, his eyes darting between Tara and Cole, as if trying to decipher some hidden conspiracy. Miles hovered nearby, his usual charm replaced by thinly veiled desperation. But when Tara rose to speak, all eyes turned to her. With calm precision, she laid out the evidence of her father's misconduct, sparing no detail. The room fell silent as she revealed the offshore accounts, the shell companies, and the planned sale to Monarch Media. Then, she presented Cole's revised proposal, emphasizing how it could preserve Carcore Media's legacy while steering it toward a brighter, more ethical future. For a moment, it seemed as though the board might reject it outright, clinging to old allegiances and fear of change. But then, one by one, members began to nod, their expressions shifting from skepticism to cautious optimism. Even Gideon, pale and defeated, said nothing, his silence speaking volumes. After the meeting, Cole found Tara standing alone on the rooftop garden of the corporate headquarters, the city sprawling endlessly below them. She looked smaller somehow, burdened by the enormity of what she'd just accomplished. Yet there was a quiet strength in her posture, a sense of resolution that hadn't been there before. "It's over," she said softly, turning to face him. "The lies, the manipulation, the life I thought I wanted, all of it." Cole stepped closer, his presence grounding her in a way nothing else could. "And what about us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want, Tara?" Her answer came not in words, but in action. She reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers, as if to say that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Over the weeks that followed, they worked side by side to rebuild, not just Carver Media, but their lives. The mansion in the city became the headquarters for their joint foundation, a testament to their shared vision of using art and media to inspire and educate. Meanwhile, the coastal sanctuary remained their retreat, a place where they could escape the pressures of the world and simply be themselves. One evening, months later, as another storm rolled in, Tara and Cole stood together in the library of the Manhattan mansion, the same room where their journey had begun. On the desk lay the completed painting they'd worked on together, the two figures now fully realized, standing hand in hand at the cliff's edge, gazing toward a horizon filled with promise. Beneath it, Cole had added a single line of text: "Where we began is where we belong." Tara smiled, leaning into him as lightning illuminated the sky outside. In that moment, she understood that love wasn't about finding someone who completed you. It was about finding someone who helped you discover the person you were always meant to be. And for Tara Carver, that person was Cole Vance. As the rain continued to fall, washing away the remnants of the past, they sealed their future with a kiss, one that carried the weight of all they'd overcome and all they hoped to achieve. Their story wasn't perfect, nor was it without scars, but it was real, forged in truth, and tempered by courage. And as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, they knew that no matter what storms lay ahead, they would weather them together.